Let's touch on what has become a very dangerous narrative and allegations coming regarding the activities of the EFCC and the Nigerian Correctional Service, the NCS. Now, from your own, a lot of Nigerians who are watching, listening to this podcast, will find it difficult. The likes of Fisaya Soyombo have done an undercover job, an investigative journey into finding out what happens on the inside of Nigerian prisons. And some of the stories are not new to our ears, but they sound unbelievable. They sound like stories that come from outside of the space. Now, from your own experience, how much of a truth are you able to derive from some of the narrative in terms of what happens in the prisons, your prison experience, and what do you think goes on behind the bars?
Well, thank you, Shimon. I think what is actually shocking is that we're quite shocked that this is happening. That in itself is a shock, And the prison system or the correctional service system is not different from the larger Nigerian society. And we know that there are two classes of Nigerians, the Nigerian with the privilege and the Nigerian without the privilege. If you go to our airports, there's a VIP sections. Don't you see them, don't you? If you drive on our roads, there are people who are not even government officials who use sirens. There are citizens of this country who have private police guards, and these police guards are paid by the taxpayers. There are celebrities moving around with DSS officials all across the nation. They don't have official roles in government, but they are free to use taxpayers funded security apparatus who are meant to be protecting the larger society. So this deniability, this sense of shock in itself is shocking. So if we have that in the larger society, what gives people the impression that within the prison system there are no class, there are no privileged Nigerians who will be sentenced and who would have the privilege of serving their sentences in 3-star hotels. This has been happening. The good thing is that for the first time, we have a first-hand confession, from somebody who experienced it. Forget the shenanigan about that voice recording being fake, but someone is actually owning up to it. We were in this country where former Governor Joshua Dare of Plateau State was alleged not to have spent his time in prison. He was said to have spent it in private official apartments, but people didn't believe it because there are no direct evidence. There's no one owning up to it. But this is the first direct evidence of this going on. But it's been going on for a very long time. I know that first, I wasn't in prison as a convict. I was awaiting trial, being charged by the military government for allegedly trying to sabotage the government. So we were held in Jos prison for about within 2 to 3 months. And in prison, you have different sections. You have the privileged section, is a cell where former President Obasanjo spent time in Jos prison, was known as the executive cell. It's got television, it's got everything. The awaiting trial section has a bit of privilege where you can go to court, you can see the light of the day. Then you have the convict section. So even the way they serve food is different from these different areas. Then you now have those privileged people who are sentenced that you never set your eyes on. You only set your eyes on them during the counting period, when you have to have the roll call. Then they disappear into thin air, then they appear again for roll call. You wonder where have they been. So we shouldn't be shocked. We should just be thankful that we are having a first-hand evidence, so to say, in terms of a sort of confession by someone who is privileged to have enjoyed what has been happening for a long time.
With what you hear, so there's a similitude of truth, right, in what the lady or the guy, Bobrisky, anyways, narrated in that audio. Is that right?
There's absolutely, there's been precedence to this, so it's not a shock. It's It's not strange to people who know, but this is the first time we are having a first-hand unintended confession for someone who has enjoyed the privilege. So if Bobrisky can enjoy the privilege, I know your platform you want me to use allegedly, you'd imagine what a former minister convicted, a former governor convicted, what privilege they would have enjoyed within the correctional service system.
So you imagine that, I was speaking with someone who said, look, some of the buildings that you find around the prison services, some of them serve as chalet, where some of these convicted persons live. And there are that all of these things happen with the very top officers, with the knowledge of the correctional service officials and all whatever. This kind of allegation or this kind of unraveling that is going on, how deep do you think this could go? How high up do you think could this particular situation or eyesore could go? How high up?
So it's from top to bottom, top to bottom to top, and top to bottom. But I also look at things not just from the problem, but the causes, the root causes. First, Nigerians should ask themselves, how much is the warder that you're telling to protect this, guard this prison, how much are they paid? What's the salary like within that system? Even up to the person who is the controller, how much are they paid really? What's the welfare? I'm not trying to justify the actions, but I'm just saying that you are paying people pittance, say for example, Ikoyi prison, or say for example, Alagmo prison, people are meant, not one warder will be able to live in Alagmo. They will actually probably be coming from Agege or coming from Lagos suburbs, so people will seek opportunity, to sort of fill their pockets. It's a larger societal thing. So it's clear that we, in looking at why there's so much corruption within the correctional services system, within the judicial system, within the armed forces, we'll have to look at the issues of remunerations. What makes it so attractive for a prison warder to want to risk their job, to give liberty to someone who is meant to be serving a sentence or who is meant to be in their custody within the prison system?
So, Kayode, it makes our prison system or our correctional system a joke, because people, when sentenced, they will just laugh it off and say, oh, well, they know that they are going, it's just away from home. That's what it looks like, isn't it?
It is, because first we ask ourselves, look, when was the first time we had prison in Nigeria? It's around 1861 or thereabouts. That's before the existence of Nigeria, and it was during the colonial era. Ask yourself, when was the last time we built a modern prison? I can assure you, even if we have built maybe like one or two in the last 10 years. So a lot of the prison, if you look at the prison system across the globe, even in sub-Saharan Africa, they're usually built outside of the community. But unfortunately, community grow, and then you have a situation where a prison is surrounded by homes, around. If you go to Ikoyi prison, once you come out of that place, you're seeing a luxurious apartment left, right, and center. Even in Jos prison, where Jos prison is located, you step out, you see the Jos museum, you see quite a lot of exclusive areas around it. So we need to renew the strategy in terms of, are this prison, the correctional services we have now, are they really fit for purpose? Do we need to now start looking at look at how free and how easy it's always been for prisoners to break loose from our correctional services. So I think what this Bobrisky scandal, if I might call it that, has done, is to draw attention to the urgent need for us to have a quick review of the correctional services system. And I think this current minister has a lot of work on his hand.
The issue of the prison term and how he or she spent, I'm a bit worried using the right pronoun for Bobrisky right now, because she looks like a woman. She was a former man, and So that makes it a bit difficult to place him properly. Now, so on one hand is the issue of how he spent the time in prison. On the other hand is the EFCC side to it. It was initially charged for money laundering, and eventually that part was dropped. That for me is another crazy.
That is the most serious aspect that as a nation we need to sit up and look. You know, when you talk about miscarriage of justice, you've had rumors over time where it is alleged that people commit murder and there are people who stand in to them in court. You've had rumors of even within the police system, people are charged and then they just pick someone on the street to stand in as the person that is said to have committed that crime. Now you've had this has highlighted that within the system, but what is most disappointing is that the EFCC was meant to be much more cleaner than the police. You know, the roles of the EFCC, people seem to forget, used to be within the regular police force. It is to curb this issue of corruption, being able to corrupt officers, that the EFCC, that anti-corruption specialized agencies, was created by law. The kind of resources they have, the regular police do not have them in terms of the budget. You know, we don't even know what's allocated to them, but it seems to have quite a lot of firepower, you know, so that is the most serious one that we need to look into. The EFCC should make the investigation open. The members of the public need to know, it needs to be transparent, because if Bobrisky was able, allegedly, to have get them to drop a charge, you can just imagine all those so-called Yahoo boys and girls they display. Sometimes you see their photograph, but you don't hear about their sentencing. The EFCC is quick to tell us on social media that they've caught social numbers of fraudsters, but you hardly hear about when they are sentenced or where they're serving the sentence. So it's huge, you know, and it's a much more serious a challenge than the issue of Bobrisky allegedly spending time in a flat. And unlike you, I am more comfortable calling Bobrisky a she because she identifies as she. So I live in a country where I must respect Bobrisky's right to identify as a she.
Well, she calls herself, or he calls himself the mother of Lagos, or is it? Yeah. So in that sense, because what she calls herself, and where you are right now, you can respect people for what they identify. In Nigeria, we identify people for what they are being born as, not what they choose to identify themselves as. All right. So, I mean, it's a major optical problem for the EFCC, and it brings a lot of debt on that institution, isn't it? And how easy would they be able to wash themselves of this kind of heavy allegation? Because, in truth, they need to be able to explain to the Nigerian public why they drop a money laundering charge against Bobrisky.
That is the most serious challenge they have. This is creating a huge dent on the EFCC. Now, the EFCC has slowly started having credibility issues. Look at the Yaya Bello case, you know, how it's being handled, where it seems to be above the law. You know, they could easily trace so-called low-level fraudsters, you know, into the den in the most remote part of Nigeria, you know, but they can't find Yaya Bello, and Yaya Bello is able to stroll into their office and then stroll out and walk free, you know. So they've been having these credibility issues, and they need to actually, this does not help the EFCC, you know. You know that after, I think the last time the EFCC was seen as a serious organization was when Nuhu Ribadu, you know, was the head of the EFCC. Subsequently, it's been, even then, it was seen as a tool to take care of President Obasanjo's political enemies, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. So the EFCC needs to win back the confidence of Nigerians, and this case is a test case for them. It's an opportunity for them, and it's a test case for them.